Number 7. The arming squire. This one sounds glamorous. It was not. A squire served a knight. The popular image is a young man learning to be a hero. The reality was different. The squire carried the knight's weapons, armour and supplies. He set up camp, he fed and cared for the horses, and after every battle he spent hours scrubbing blood, mud and rust off armour with sand and vinegar until his hands were raw. But the worst part was the battlefield itself. Squires followed their knights into combat. They carried spare weapons and helped their knight back onto his horse if he fell. But they wore little or no armour of their own. They were surrounded by trained killers holding no real protection, standing right next to the most valuable target on the field. If the knight went down, the squire was usually next. Number 6. The whipping boy. This one is not disgusting, it is just cruel. In some royal households, a prince could not be punished by an ordinary person. The belief was that only a king had the right to strike a future king. But kings were busy, often away at war, and a prince still needed discipline. So the solution was the whipping boy. A common child was chosen and raised alongside the prince. They studied together, they played together, they became friends, and when the prince misbehaved, the whipping boy was beaten in his place. And that was the entire point. The punishment was not meant to hurt the whipping boy, it was meant to hurt the prince, because watching your friend get beaten for something you did was supposed to teach you a lesson. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes the prince did not care at all. Either way, the whipping boy still felt every strike. Number 5. The fuller. Wool cloth came off the loom, rough and greasy. To make it soft and thick enough to wear, it had to be cleaned and pounded. This process was called fulling, and the cleaning agent they used was stale human urine. Towns collected it. There were public buckets on street corners for people to contribute. Some cities even taxed it. The fuller poured that urine into a large vat, added the wool, and then climbed in. Barefoot, he stomped the cloth for hours, sometimes all day. The urine broke down the grease in the wool while his feet did the work of a machine that had not been invented yet. The chemicals ate at his skin. His feet cracked and burned, and the smell soaked into him so deeply that fullers were often forced to live at the edge of town, away from everyone else. Number 4. The leech collector. Medieval doctors believed that most illnesses came from having too much blood. The solution was simple. Drain some out. And the tool of choice was the leech. But someone had to catch them. The leech collector waded into swamps and stagnant ponds, and to attract the leeches he used the best bait available. His own legs. He stood in the water, bare-legged, and waited. The leeches attached themselves and started feeding. He let them drink until they were full. Then he pried them off and dropped them in a bucket. He did this all day. The bites did not stop bleeding right away. Leech saliva keeps blood flowing, so his legs bled for hours after he got out of the water. Add in dirty swamp water and open wounds, and infections were constant. Most leech collectors were pale, sick, and covered in scars. Many of them died from blood loss or infection long before old age. Number 3. The tanner. If the fuller had it bad, the tanner had it worse. Tanners turned animal skins into leather, and the process was one of the most revolting in human history. First, the fresh hides were soaked in urine to loosen the hair. Then the tanner scraped off the hair and any leftover flesh by hand. That flesh rotted in piles beside him. Then came the softening stage. To make the leather flexible, the hides were soaked in a mixture of animal brains and dog waste. Tanners paid children to roam the streets, collect it in buckets, and bring it to them. Then the tanner kneaded the hides in that mixture with his hands for hours. The smell of a medieval tannery was so overwhelming that towns legally banned them from being anywhere near where people lived. Tanners were pushed downriver, downwind, and out of sight. They made good leather, but nobody wanted to stand near them. Number 2, the gong farmer. In medieval cities, there were no sewers. Every home had a cesspit underneath it, and when that pit filled up, someone had to empty it. That someone was the gong farmer. He was only allowed to work at night because the smell was so bad that daytime work was banned by law. He climbed down into the pit with a bucket and a shovel. He scooped out human waste by hand. Then he hauled it outside the city walls and dumped it. The pay was actually good, better than most jobs at the time. But there was a reason for that. The fumes in those pits were poisonous. Men passed out down there and never woke up. Others slipped and drowned in the waste itself. One gong farmer in London fell into a pit and suffocated before anyone could reach him. Number 1. The plague corpse collector. When the Black Death swept through Europe, people died faster than anyone could bury them. Bodies piled up in homes, in streets, in doorways. Somebody had to move them. The corpse collectors pushed carts through the streets, calling out for people to bring out their dead. They loaded bodies by hand. They stacked them. Then they wheeled them to giant pits outside the city and tipped them in. They had almost no protection. A cloth over the face at best. Nobody understood how the disease spread, so nobody knew what would help. The job paid well because almost nobody would take it. The people who did were usually criminals released for the work, or the desperate poor with nothing left to lose. Most of them caught the plague themselves, and then somebody had to come collect them. So those are 7 of the worst jobs of the medieval world. The squire standing in a battle he could not win. The whipping boy taking someone else's punishment. The fuller in the vat. The leech collector bleeding in the swamp. The tanner in the filth. The gong farmer in the pit. And the corpse collector wheeling the dead. And here's the strange part. These were not punishments. They were not sentences handed down by a court. They were careers. People chose them. People raised families on them. Some of them passed the job down to their children. Because in a world with no safety net, a terrible job was still better than no job at all. So the next time your work feels unbearable, remember something. Somewhere in the past, a man climbed into a pit of human waste in the middle of the night, filled his bucket, and thought to himself that he was one of the lucky ones.